Hi Lisa, I feel like I have regressed a little. I was able to understand your words and it was rhyming to me deep down, but for the last few days I get preoccupied by my mind with constant thoughts, depression, disappointment and abandonment. The attachment is magnetic and I feel it's very difficult to get out. Any suggestions? Okay, so let me just be really honest with you, as you've asked me. When I worked with you one-on-one, I found that you didn't want to sit with uncomfortable feelings. Like if I tried to push you to these uncomfortable feelings that I knew were presiding in you, you avoided it. You didn't try your best to avoid it, but you didn't like it, and I could feel that you didn't feel any benefit of it. But part of what seems to happen on the awakening process, even though waking up has got nothing to do with the human level, this seems to be the process that happens, is there's a surrender to your thoughts and feelings. But you have to know what your thoughts and feelings are for them, in order for there to be a surrender to them. Most people are living in such an illusion about what they think and what they feel that they aren't conscious of these feelings that are playing in the background. When you have a tragic event like you had, then these feelings become more obvious, but you know that you've experienced them throughout your life on and off. So you know that they've been there like a shadow, but you've never paid them any attention, and things were going good enough to give you hope, to give you a sense of relief. There was enough pleasure to avoid them. Even when you were uncomfortable, you could distract yourself and do something to avoid them. And now you're in the situation where you've got this time for them to come up, but I get the feeling that you don't want to sit with them and you don't want to feel them. They're too uncomfortable. Depression won't kill you, disappointment won't kill you, abandonment won't kill you. They're feelings that arise. And at the moment what happens is that they're so uncomfortable. As soon as they arrive, your seeking gets really active and your mind gets really active trying to get out of it. And you get lost in thought, and you get lost in action, or you get lost in doing, rather than just coming back to them. That you feel abandoned, and it's totally okay to feel abandoned. It's only a feeling. It can't eat you, it can't destroy you. It's a feeling that will come and go, and it's not always present, but it's something that most humans have deep down, and it's just coming comfortable with these feelings. We're not trying to get rid of them, not trying to fix them, but becoming comfortable with them. So I feel abandonment, but you've got to know that you're feeling it. So when I work with people, I try to get them to go down to their basic feelings, but it works sometimes, but sometimes it's also difficult because they keep wanting to tell their story of who they are rather than go down to their basic feeling. So I'll try and give you an example of this. So say when I'm working with you, this is an example, it's not an example of you, but just an example of people. So say when I'm working with people, it feels difficult to admit how you feel in that moment. It feels very vulnerable. And you're not even conscious of it, but to go in and to really expose your internal world. So what I do is I'll ask you questions. This is what I do in the session. So I'll ask you questions about things or events that have disturbed you. So say like your feeling about work, or what you feel about work or something. And what you want to do is you want to maintain pleasure around work. Like, so obviously you don't always feel bad about work, but there are bad maybe feelings about work that come up, like feeling trapped or feeling powerless. But you don't want to admit that because that's too difficult to incorporate into a story of you. Some people might admit it and some people might identify with it, and then there's that's a different story. So most people then will want to keep pulling away from it and saying work's fine, you know, it's got its up days and its down days, and they don't want to get right to the source, that work makes them at points feel powerless and alone and scared and trapped. And so when I ask them questions, I try to get them to that place and then get them to just feel it in their body, which will be more than likely solar plexus or the sacral chakra. So just to feel it in their body and just to admit it. Like when this happens at work, I feel afraid, I feel trapped, I feel scared. But in order to do that, there has to be a willingness to let go of your story of what you want work to be, or what you want me to think about what your work's like what you want me to think about you. Like it's often difficult to admit these feelings that aren't always there, aren't always present. It doesn't mean that your relationship like that's always like that at work. It's sometimes, but that's what we're looking at the dark feelings that then make you seek. And most people want to keep a story of themselves running, and they want me to see that story. And if they do keep the story running, then it gives them a sense of safety, that they will be safe in time, because if you admit the dark feelings, they might eat you, it might take over you. And that's what the person wants to do, is it always wants to maintain the story. Work's fine, yeah, I enjoy it, I've been to therapists before, I've worked through this stuff. And they say all these things, but even in therapy, it's still about a story of you, rather than just coming to your actual feelings in that moment when I'm asking you about a subject, just being able to say the basic feeling. And each chakra center has a basic vibration. So if you're having difficulty at work, then we go to the chakra area and we look at it and we explore it. And they all have similar flavors. Not the chakras all have similar flavors, but every humans have similar feelings in their chakras. It's like the heart area is heartache, not feeling good enough, feeling unloved. And in the positive, it's love, feeling good enough, feeling like you belong, like you're part of a group, etc. And most humans have that same feeling in the same area. So when I'm working with people, I'm asking them to go beyond the story that they want to tell about themselves. Like beyond all the work they've done in the past, like I've done this and I've done that and I've been there, and beyond their fear of feeling their feelings, and just coming down to that basic feeling. So what I'll do is I'll find an area of a subject that's sensitive to you at that current moment when we're speaking, and then I'll try and get you to rest in the feeling and just accept it and see that it's not a big deal, that you don't have to always run away from it, that when you feel disappointment or abandonment, that you don't have to run out and get a new person or watch TV or take drugs or drink alcohol, that this feeling is something that comes and goes and you don't need to form an identity around it. Most people have these feelings, but they try to create an identity so they never feel those feelings. So they're trying to maintain and keep an identity that keeps them removed from their basic feelings, because their basic feelings terrify them. And then they live up in their head and their story about themselves. So when I work with people, it's always like trying to get them to come away from this story that they're telling about themselves and what they want me to see about them, what they want me to interpret about them, and just come back down to what they feel. And this also can be difficult because sometimes people can't feel their body and they can't feel their feelings, so they're unaware of what's there. They believe their story about what's there is true, so they believe their story works fine. I have problems with my colleagues and sometimes I feel afraid, but it's fine. Whatever the story is. But I could tell we were working that you really didn't want to feel your feelings. Like you kept using this distraction to get me away from it. So this is the reason that you're having these feelings, is because this is exactly what's happening to you now, is that in this process you're becoming more real. So that your story about yourself isn't having such a strong effect, and you're coming more real to your feelings. And these feelings that are coming up were there in your relationship. They were there hidden away, and they were there. I'm sure you could feel they were there in the relationship, but your relationship gave you positive feelings. So your relationship made you feel like you have company, companionship, distracted you. So your focus was more on the positive emotions, but they were there in the background, and they created you to seek to hold on to the relationship, to seek to do things. So it created this seeking dynamic around the relationship, where you would seek to make sure you got attention, or make sure that you had place, or make sure that you fitted in, or make sure your wife saw you in a particular way. And that's what creates the seeking dynamic. It's not the feelings themselves that's a problem. Like, it's natural to have feelings. It's naturally to feel worried or anxiety at points. It's natural to feel abandoned at points. Like, how are you meant to know, like, if someone's left you or not? There's meant to be natural feelings, like a feeling abandoned. To say if someone leaves you in a very bad situation, that's a very natural and obvious feeling. And in your situation, it's natural those feelings come up. But it's when that you create a life seeking to avoid feelings that eventually they're going to come up like a tidal wave. When you create a life that's always trying to avoid particular feelings rather than embracing them and allowing them to be there when they come up,